Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here. Command Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So I talked about the playoffs and it being right in front of us. Everything that we wanted, everything that we talked about before the season started, everything we talked about during the season and, you know, when we were winning football games and during the bye week, all of that stuff, it's right in front of us. 2 games left in the season. All the scenarios are right there. There's no guessing at this point. There's no, all right, this is what we need. We know all of the scenarios. We know all of what needs to be done. And really, it's cut and dry for Washington. We don't need to rely on anybody. We don't need anybody's help. Just win football games. Okay? The postseason is real. It exists. It's right there in front of us. Everything we want is right there. You can reach out and grab it. There's also the alternative, though. You could make it. We could be excited. We could be talking about a playoff game on January 14th on the road at Minnesota at 8 p.m. on Saturday night. Or we could be talking about what we're going to do at quarterback or what we're going to do at cornerback or what we're going to do on the offensive line on January 14th. It's up to this team as to what is going to happen. But I told you guys that today we were going to look at playoff scenarios. We were going to also look at all of the teams that are right there vying for one of those final wild card spots in the NFC. So that's what I want to focus on today. And really, there's not a lot of explaining at this point. It's not like 2 weeks ago when, you know, there were 4 games and this could happen, that could happen. We pretty much know what it is at this point. So let's take a look at the scenarios, all right? The scenarios. Scenario, you call it what you want, but it's really cut and dry. First, let me just say this. I'm extremely jealous of the Giants. I'm jealous. That's a really bad emotion to have. You know, you can be envious. Jealousy is the ugliest, you know, form of wanting what someone else has that can lead to some ugliness. We'll call it that. We should be in this category here where it says Giants clinches a playoff berth with. The Giants have 10 different scenarios in which they can clinch a playoff berth this upcoming weekend. And the best of the best is when you look at the first scenario and it's just, hey, just win. You don't have to do anything else. That was supposed to be us. This was supposed to be a Washington logo, and it was supposed to say Washington clinches a playoff berth with, and number 1 was supposed to be Washington win in week 17. Beat the Browns and you're in. That was supposed to be our existence. And we effed it up by not being able to beat the Giants one single time. 2 chances, 2 tries, and we couldn't get it done once. They got 10 different ways they can get in out. Most of these ways aren't going to happen. They're not tying again more likely than not, but still. They just win and they're in. They're going to make the playoffs. Let's just keep it a buck. But down at the very bottom in the left-hand corner, there's a small little sliver there. If you weren't paying attention close enough, you may have missed it. But right at the very bottom where this red box now is, Washington clinches a playoff berth with. We only have one way we can do it. And it's highly unlikely. And I'll show you why it's highly unlikely. But there's a chance. So you're telling me there's a chance. Washington has to win. Clearly, they can't lose any more games this season if they want to make the playoffs. Washington needs to win, plus have Seattle lose, which is a very distinct possibility. And they'll need a loss by Detroit and a loss by Green Bay or a tie by Green Bay because we own the tiebreaker over the Green Bay Packers. So if they tie, we would own the tiebreaker because we beat them head to head. Now, Detroit can't tie. As you see, it doesn't say loss / tie because they beat us and they own the tiebreaker over us. But essentially, the 3 teams chasing us in the wild card would all have to lose and we'd have to win for us to get in. I'm just going to tell you right now, it's not going to happen. And I'll show you this in a little bit as to why I don't think it will. Now, anything's possible, but the biggest thing that you have to pay attention to here is we have to win. Forget about all the other stuff. Whether those teams all lose or not is irrelevant. If we win, we're still in the playoffs going into next week, which is all you can ask for. You lose, all bets are off. Speaking of, if we lose, I want to direct your attention to the right side of the screen and where you can be eliminated. So this first left-hand column was clinching scenarios for teams, all right, which we only have one. There's also an elimination scenario for this team. Scenario, where we can be eliminated on Sunday if we don't take care of business. Washington loses and Green Bay and Detroit win. So here's why this scenario is very possible and why it happens to roll out this way. If Washington loses, they would fall to 7-8-1 on the season. A win by Detroit would put them at 8-8 on the season. Same with Green Bay. A win would put them at 8-8 on the season. Again, we would need to finish better than both of these teams to get in. We can't finish tied with either one of them, right? So we would then need to have one of them lose because they play each other next week. Somebody's going to win that game next week, right? Someone will win that game next week, meaning someone will have a better record than Washington next week, all right? So if both Green Bay and Detroit win this week and we lose, we're done. Because we can't catch either one of those teams because somebody is going to win in week 18, meaning they're going to finish the season at 9-8. If we lose this week, we can't get to 9 wins. So again, back to my original point, win football games. That's all we have to do. Don't worry about who's losing, who's winning. Just win our game and we're fine. And let the rest of that stuff take care of itself. I tell you that all the time. I don't worry about what anybody else is doing. We just take care of our own business and everything else will take care of itself. So now you know, if Washington wins and Seattle, Detroit, and Green Bay all lose, we're in. We don't need the Week 18 game against the Dallas Cowboys. We're in. Hooray! That's not going to happen. Okay, no confetti will be tossed in the air. We won't be celebrating New Year's with a playoff berth. That's not happening this week. And again, we'll get into that here in a second. The more likely scenario is that we're eliminated. Now, I don't think that's going to happen this weekend because I don't think we're going to lose either. But I didn't think we were going to lose to the Giants either. Now, did I? So this is the more likely scenario because it involves less moving parts. Washington just has to lose and Detroit and Green Bay both have to win. This one requires 4 things to happen. We have to win and then 3 teams have to either all lose and Green Bay loses or ties. You're asking 4 things to happen. That's a lot. This is just 3. And all it involves is Washington losing and then the other 2 teams winning. That's more likely than Washington winning and having 3 separate teams all lose on the same day. So let's get into exactly why I think that we're going to have to play Week 18. First of all, you got to win in Week 17, and then you got to play Week 18 and win that game to get in. Let's take a look at these schedules. So I want to start in the order of teams that really don't concern me at this point. The Giants don't concern me because when they beat us, they moved out. Remember when I told you guys going into that Giants game, I'm not really worried about the 7th seed because my eyes were set on the 6th seed at that point because I fully expected to beat the Giants. And once we beat the Giants, we were pretty much in at that point, which is the Giants are pretty much in, right? All the Giants have to do is beat the Indianapolis Colts this Sunday. They're going to beat the Colts this Sunday. If they can't beat the Colts at home, then they don't need to go to the playoffs. But as far as I'm concerned, they're going to beat the Colts. They're not going to need the Week 18 game because they're going to clinch this weekend, okay? And 6 of the 7 NFC playoff spots will be spoken for. So the Giants, they're not concerned with Washington because they beat us and now they're going to make the playoffs. It's damn near impossible for the Giants to not be one of the 7 teams in the NFC playoffs. They've pretty much punched their ticket by beating us. So while I'm showing you the Giants because there's still a chance that we could get their spot, right? There's still a chance they could lose out. We could win out and we could move into the 6th seed and somebody could slide in and take their spot. Highly unlikely at this point, okay? The Giants have 2 games to win 1 and they're in. Beat the Colts or beat the Eagles next week. Eagles won't have a damn thing to play for next week. It'll probably be Gardner Minshew and a bunch of backup players. If you can't beat them, oh well, sorry. But they'll win this week against Indianapolis. So there's nothing to really be concerned with there. So as far as I'm concerned, the Giants, they're in the playoffs. Seattle, another team I'm not really that concerned with because look at what they've done. They barely beat the Rams, okay? And remember, this was prior to Baker Mayfield joining the team. This wasn't Baker Mayfield giving them a spark in the resurgent Los Angeles Rams. This was the, Bryce, whatever his name is, and John Wofford and all of those guys, piecing together a formidable team and them barely beating the Rams. Then they lose to the Panthers, get run all over. They lose to the 49ers on a short week on a Thursday night, and they lose to the Chiefs last week. They've lost 3 in a row. They're playing bad football, and now the Jets are getting Mike White back at quarterback. I think they're going to lose again, personally. I think the Jets are going to go right into Seattle and beat them, but even if they don't, I'm still not really that concerned with Seattle. The only reason that you should be concerned with them is because they can take our spot, just like Green Bay and Detroit can take our spot. All they have to do is win their final 2 games. All we have to do is lose 1, and Seattle would be in over us. But I don't like the way they're playing right now. I think the Jets are going to waltz right into Seattle and beat them. But we'll see. Jets are fighting for their playoff lives. Seattle's fighting for theirs. Jets are getting their quarterback back. I think the Jets are going to go in there and win. But, well, we'll see. Not really concerned with Seattle. They're really the least of my worries at this point. Now you get to the teams that I am worried about, the teams that I am concerned about. And we start with Detroit. We talked about them playing good football. They were coming off the pace. But I told you, the Lions are going to lion. Didn't I tell you that? I said, look, as good a football as they're playing, and, there were people that were concerned about watch out for the Lions. I'm like, yeah, look, I'm not dismissing the Lions, but they're still the Lions, okay? And they don't really know what to do right now. They've never really been in this position, and they don't really know how to handle the type of success that was coming their way. And so it was inevitable that they would go to Carolina and get a mud hole stomped in them. And they did. They gave up over 300 yards rushing in that game. It was a laughable defensive performance. But they're going to bounce back, and they're going to beat Chicago this week at home. And guess what? The Bears are going to be game, and Justin Fields is going to give them a run for their money, but they're going to beat the Bears at home. It might be a close game, but they're going to win. Okay? So we're not clinching because of that fact. I could see Seattle losing to the Jets. I could see Green Bay losing to the Vikings. I don't see the Lions losing to the Bears. I just don't. The Bears are a try-hard team. They'll fight you for 3 quarters, but they're going to make 2 or 3 mistakes down the stretch that are going to allow the Lions to win that football game. I wouldn't be shocked if this is a 34-30 type of shootout, but the Bears just don't have enough ammunition. Lions are going to win that game. And then there's the massive matchup. This is why I didn't think the Lions were going to make the playoffs, because I said I didn't expect Green Bay to do what they did. I didn't expect Green Bay to go to Miami last week. We'll talk about the Packers here in a second. But I expected them to lose. Even if they had beaten Carolina, which they would be in over us right now, I still thought they were going to lose to the Packers in week number 18. So we were still going to have a shot. But now that they've lost to the Panthers, it's made our picture crystal clear. You don't need any help. You just got to win games. They're dangerous because if they win their final 2 games and we just lose one, they're in. Same for the next team that I left for dead a really long time ago. When they got their asses kicked by the Eagles on a Sunday night and gave up over 350 yards rushing to Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders and company, I left the Packers for dead, just like everybody else did. They suck. They're not going to the playoffs this year. And Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee's show and he said, we're going to make the playoffs. After they beat Chicago, and it wasn't a pretty victory either, and the Bears had them dead to rights. The Bears were up in that game like 16-3, and they blew it. Green Bay came back and beat them 28-19. Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee's show and said, we're going to make the playoffs. And I said, that's cute. That's like the same thing when you said after we beat you, and then you said it was going to be a great test for you against Buffalo, but you've been here before, and this is what your team needed, and then you went to Buffalo and you lost again. That's cute. What is he supposed to say? But then they beat the Rams. Not really that big of an accomplishment. Didn't think they were going to Miami and beating the Dolphins, though. They did that. So now it sets up a situation where they're 7-8, just like Detroit. And this is a big game. They've got the Vikings at home, right? Here's the danger in this game, because the Vikings are a better team than the Packers, but the Vikings don't really have anything that they have to play for. The Vikings want to play this game. They don't have to play this game. What do I mean? They've already clinched the division, okay? Now, do the Vikings want to be the 2 seed? You damn right they want to be the 2 seed, okay? And the 49ers are knocking at the door of the 2 seed. They want the 2 seed from the Vikings. The Vikings don't want to relinquish the 2 seed. And so what do they have to do to keep the 2 seed? They have to beat the Green Bay Packers. But honestly speaking, they want the 1 seed. That's what everyone's coveting. That's what everyone's after. They have to win out and have the Eagles lose out for the Vikings to get the 1 seed. Well, if you get to halftime of your game, you're playing at 4:25. The Eagles are playing at 1 o'clock. So you'll know before your game starts, did the Eagles beat the Saints? The answer is going to be yes. The Eagles beat the Saints 31-10. And if your head coach, Kevin O'Connell, you then have a decision to make. If Kirk Cousins is getting his ass kicked, if Dalvin Cook sprains his ankle, if you don't like the way the game's going at halftime, guess what you can decide to do? Kirk, you're out. Hey, a backup quarterback, Nick Mullins, you finish the rest of this game. Hey, Dalvin, you're out. Backup running back, you get in there, finish the rest of this game. Hey, Justin Jefferson, know you're having a great year. You're chasing after 2,000 yards. Your health is more important. You're out of the second half of this game. Highly unlikely that you do that in week 17 with a whole nother ball game left. They can just rest in week 18, right? But if you still want the 2nd seed, you're going to need to beat Green Bay. But if you're not really that pressed for the 2nd seed, if you're like, it doesn't matter to us. We're either going to be the 2 seed or the 3 seed. We're cool either way. Then they could say, we don't really need this game. I don't see them doing that because not only could they fall from the 2 seed to the 3, Dallas beat the brakes off of them, a month ago. They could fall all the way because Dallas may not lose another game this season. They could fall all the way down to the 4 seed. So I don't know, or excuse me, I keep saying that. Dallas can't catch them because Dallas is a wild card. Dallas can't be a division winner. The furthest back they can go is the 3 seed. So again, they may not care about 2 versus 3. They may not care. They may even say, hell, we much rather play the 3 seed, the 6 seed than the 7 seed. They may catch a hot Packers team and say, you know what? Really don't want to see Aaron Rodgers again. We'll take the 3 seed. We'll let San Francisco deal with that shit. I'm just telling you, the Vikings don't have to win this game. They want to win this game. So I don't trust the Vikings anyway. So I could see the Vikings beating the Packers because I don't think the Packers are a good football team. I don't. They're still making mistakes. They're still doing dumb shit. They just played teams that haven't been playing good football. The Dolphins are struggling. The Rams aren't a good team. The Bears aren't a good team. So they've won games against bad football teams. The Vikings are a good team. I think the Vikings are going to beat them, but I don't trust the Vikings to do anything. Neither should you. But the beauty of this is if the Vikings beat them, the Packers are still going to want to beat the Lions next week. So essentially what I'm telling you is we need to win. We could win, not clinch, but be as close as you could be to clinching without clinching, because if the Packers lose, right, they're eliminated essentially if they lose. But they're going to try to eliminate Detroit next week. Aaron Rodgers isn't resting next week. Even if he does, Jordan Love and company are still going to go out there and try to take these Lions out. And I think they're going to have a great shot at doing that. So then you would look at it and say, well, did Seattle win? If the Jets beat Seattle, if the Vikings beat Green Bay, but the Lions beat the Bears, but then the Packers beat the Lions next week, and we win this week, we're in. Right? We're in. Again, let's not leave it to chance. How about we just win this week and we win next week? And then we don't have to worry about any of this stuff. I get it. Everything could fall right into place for us. We can get all three of those teams to lose and we win and we're in. Highly unlikely. Because either the Jets are going to lay an egg in Seattle, the Bears are going to go to Detroit and lose, or the Vikings are going to let us down. Someone of those three teams that we need to beat, the teams that are behind us, one of those teams is going to let us down, whether it's the Jets, the Bears, or the Vikings. I never like asking bad football teams to do me any favors. The Bears are a bad football team. Don't ask bad teams to do favors for you. You'll be disappointed every single time. So just win the game. That's what we need to do. Just beat the Cleveland Browns. So, in other news, injury reports for Thursday, very interesting to say the least. We'll get to those in a second. Heard from both coordinators, Scott Turner, Jack Del Rio. We'll talk about what was said there, and then we'll turn our attention to the Cleveland Browns and go behind enemy lines. Let's first take a look at the injury report that I think is very interesting because it's still not promising. It's not what last week's injury report was, where I felt damn good about it, right? I don't feel that way about this injury report. I don't feel terrible about it, but I don't feel good about it. So the 4 DMPs that you see at the top, 3 out of the 4 worry me or 3 of them I'm 100% certain aren't going to play. John Bostic not playing, Sadiq Charles not playing, James Smith-Williams not playing. We're going to miss James Smith-Williams, but we'll be okay. We'll live because Chase Young's back, right? We'll live. We'll survive. The Antonio Gibson one is a tricky one because he could not practice all week. He's done this before and play on Sunday. The likelihood, though, is I don't think he's going to play this week. I'm just giving you my honest opinion. Didn't practice yesterday. We always like to see guys who didn't practice on Wednesday get out there and at least be on a limited basis on Thursday. No such luck with Antonio Gibson. I think he's going to miss this game. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of Jonathan Williams, and I think you're going to see Jarrett Patterson be activated this week. We'll see. Chase Young back from his illness. He was a full participant today. That's great news. So we'll have him on Sunday, again, barring any kind of setback. Cam Curl limited again. Jack Del Rio did not sound enthused about the prospects of getting Cameron Curl back this week. He didn't rule it out, but he didn't sound like a coach that was getting his guy back. So that's just touch and go. He'll be, I think, a game time decision. They'll work him out prior to the game and see how he feels. And if he feels good enough to go, he'll go. If he doesn't, we'll be without Cam Curl again. And the tight end position could be a problem. We'll talk more about that when we talk about what Jack Del Rio had to say. Andrew Norwell, I told you don't worry about him. He's been dealing with the shoulder for the last month. He's going to play. Benjamin St. Juste, this is another one that's scary because, and I told you, I wasn't really too sure that he was fully healthy anyway. I mean, we saw him limp off the field against San Francisco. Looked like he had re-aggravated the injury. Then he came back in the game and played, but like he literally looked like he was running in slow motion. He gutted it out, but he's not right. This should scare you if you were hoping he was going to play this week. Goes from limited on Wednesday to DNP on Thursday, which means that ankle probably digressed, right? It probably worsened. It probably went from feeling okay to feeling bad. It swelled up. It was sore. I don't think he's going to play. That's a huge blow to this defense that could ill afford any blows to the secondary in particular. We're already down our best, secondary defender in Cam Curl as is. More likely than not, at least. I can't say that for sure, but you take away the best corner we have, or one of the better corners we have, it's dicey. I'll just say that. Shaka Toney, full after being limited yesterday. Brian Robinson, I told you don't worry about him. He's going to be fine. But you see what's going around the locker room. Chase Young had an illness. Now you're seeing Derek Forrest and Wes Schweitzer with illnesses and not practicing. I wouldn't be too concerned about those two guys. I'd like to think that they'll play. Again, how serious is the illness? If it's a 24-hour bug, okay, they'll be back tomorrow. They'll be fine. But if they're sick for 3 days and they play on Sunday but weren't really able to keep any fluids down, they're not going to be themselves. Keep in mind, these are human beings we're talking about. They're not machines. So that you can't be sick. I mean, just think about yourself. If you're sick and you're hurting for 3 days, that first day that you feel better, you're not 100%. You're not back to being yourself. You just think about it. If they got sick on Thursday, they woke up this morning and didn't feel well again on Friday, started to feel a little bit better on Saturday, but still weren't 100%. And then they play on Sunday. Do you think they're going to be 100%? The answer is no. So and again, Wes Schweitzer's our starting center. We can't afford for Wes Schweitzer of all the people on the offensive line. Not that you want anybody to be banged up on the offense, but Wes Schweitzer is the one guy you go, hey, buddy, we need you to play. All right. So, yeah, we can't take another hit in the secondary. We can't go without Derek Forrest already not knowing if Cam Curl's going to play. Are you serious? So, yes, this is a very, very interesting injury report. Percy Butler, hip limited. Tomorrow, we're going to have another look at this tomorrow. By the time I do the video tomorrow, because I'm stepping out of the office, I won't have access to this. So I don't know what this is going to look like tomorrow. You're going to have to do this on your own. That's going to be a pretty damn interesting injury report on Friday, because usually Fridays are walkthroughs. So you're not putting a lot of strain on these guys. If you can't walk through on a limited basis on Friday, you're going to see a lot of outs for that game status. That far right-hand corner, you're going to see a lot of outs for this team that have to win. This team that has to win, you're going to see some outs of some important pieces. This isn't the time for this shit, but, what can you do, right? It is what it is. Take a look at the Browns. It's what we thought it was. I told you don't worry about any of the NRI guys. So Batonio, Cooper, Garrett, all those guys are going to play. You don't need to be concerned. I don't think Jadeveon Clowney is going to play. You go from limited to now DNP, and he has an illness. Is that illness related to his concussion? I don't know. But the thing about Jadeveon Clowney is it doesn't take much for him to miss a game. I don't think he's going to play. I would prefer him not to anyway. I told you, at this point, I'm begging. I'm Keith Sweat over here. I'm begging for dudes not to play. Anything that we can get now, I'm taking it. Normally, I'm like, yo, I don't care if a guy plays or not. I prefer you to have all your guys out there because I don't want any excuses. I'm looking for excuses. I want you to be upset because somebody didn't play. I need all the help I can get. I'm begging for Jadeveon Clowney to miss this game. The less we have to worry about, the better. We already got to deal with Myles Garrett. I don't need to worry about both him and Clowney. John Johnson, thigh, limited both days. Just keep an eye on him. He's a really good safety back there. Does a lot for their defense. It'd be great if he couldn't play. I think he's going to go. You see all of these fulls. I told you yesterday, all those guys were full. Don't worry about them. They're playing. Then you add Jack Conklin in. It's a rest. Okay, so don't pay any attention to that. Demetric Felton, DMP, again, he's got an illness. Don't worry about that. I already told you Jedrick Wills, I don't think he's going to play. That's a big miss for them. That's great on the offensive line. And Jadeveon Clowney were the two that you should concern yourself with. And I think we may get a break, and neither one of those guys is going to play. So, anyway, I digress. Heard from the two coordinators today. Let's start with Jack Del Rio. He was pretty candid about the absence of Cameron Curl last week. And he said, look, we missed him. I mean, what else do you want me to say? He said, what does he bring to your team? He was pretty much asked, what does Cam Curl bring to the defense? He was like, the ability to cover the tight end. We had a guy running all over our defense last week. No one covered him. It'd be nice to have Cam Curl cover him. So he just pretty much said, hey, we got another athletic tight end this week. It'd be nice to have Cam Curl back to cover him. But, you got to do what you got to do. You got to work with what you have. And, if he can't go, we got to step up and have guys, take care of business. And he said, the explosives killed us last week, and we can't have that. And we looked at it. We talked about it. We made the proper adjustments, and we looked to correct those things this week. But again, last week was an expected loss. You don't want to lose, but that was an expected loss. This isn't that this week. You can't afford to give up explosives to a team that hasn't been creating explosive plays since Deshaun Watson has gotten back in the lineup and has struggled to score points. You can't give those up to a team that's struggling and give them confidence. You've got to make them earn everything that they get. And so we've got to be better. We've got to be more precise. We've got to be detail-oriented. And Jack pretty much said all of that. Like, we got to be better, man. We got to hone in. Of course, he was asked a couple of Chase Young questions and what he looked like last week. And he's like, he was fine, I pretty much feel like Jack was like, it was his first game back. He was definitely rusty. You could tell he was a little tentative at times. But, the smarts was there. We got a little bit more out of him than we thought. We thought we were only going to get 12 to 15. We doubled that. He got 30 snaps out of him. He hustled. He did all the things that you want to see out of him. Now we just want to see him get back to being a pass rusher. And he's not quite there yet. More reps will help him get there. And Chase has always did a great job. Jack said he did a great job of setting a physical edge in the run game. Chase has always done that. You don't draft a guy second overall because he sets a physical edge in the run game. Chase is a smart dude. He batted down a screen. He saw it. He read it. He batted it down, tried to pick it off. Yeah, that's part of the package of what you're looking for from a number 2 overall pick, is a guy that is aware, not going to just chase the bait and run up the field when they're running a screen to his side. No, I need to see that and make a play on it, right? But again, you drafted Chase number 2 overall because of him impacting the game, and they're hoping to see that, coming up. So, I was pleasantly surprised with the way Chase looked, honestly. Thought he played hard. I thought he looked a little bit more spry than I thought he was going to look. Now it's about gaining that confidence and doing some of the things that we know he's fully capable of doing. And hopefully that happens this week against the Browns. I think that was really the extent of what Jack had to say. They pretty much tried to get game plan stuff out of him. Jack never surrenders. He's like, they had talked about Jack playing a lot more zone the last month. And last week they played pretty much strictly zone coverage, really no man at all. I think a lot of that too is a byproduct of not having a healthy Benjamin St. Juice. It's hard to play man coverage, and Juice has been out roughly a month. It's hard to play a lot of man coverage when you don't trust the guys to go one-on-one, right? You trust Kendall Fuller, but you don't trust Danny Johnson or whomever is the other corner. You don't trust Bobby McCain one-on-one. We saw that against the Giants and Richie James. Like, it's hard to play man coverage when you don't trust your guys to be able to man up. So you have to play zone, right? When you're compromised in the secondary, you play zone coverage. So, they asked him about it. He's like, look, every week is different. Every game plan is specific to the team we're going against. And so we'll see what they decide to do this week. But, moving on to Scott Turner. Scott Turner talked about, criticism, right? And how he's handled that. He said he's gotten a lot better at dealing with that. He's aware that it comes with the territory. And this fan base has been hypercritical of his, play calling. I've been critical of his situational. I told you I don't necessarily have a problem with him as a play caller, as a play designer. My problem is his unwillingness to adapt to the pieces that he has, and being so rigid with his scheme. And then my other problem is situational awareness. Speaking of which, he addressed the Brian Robinson 4th and 1, and he said, essentially the question was phrased in a manner of, you had 2 4th-down-and-1s, and Brian Robinson didn't get either one of them. And he explained both. He said the first one, Robinson had 3 straight carries, and he took himself out of the game. Robinson, got a little banged up on that 3rd down run, took himself out, and they had a run called, and they trusted that Gibson could get it done, and he didn't. So I didn't think he took him out. I told you guys as much. I'm like, I don't think Brian Robinson coming out of the game was a Scott Turner decision. Like, okay, B-Rob didn't get it 3 times in a row. Get somebody else in there. That wasn't going to be a decision from Scott Turner. They want Brian Robinson in there on 4th-and-1. Trust me. He took himself out. So he said the second one, which was the quarterback sneak that we didn't get, he said they tried to hurry to the line. They did not substitute, but for whatever reason, the officials stood in front of the ball and wouldn't let us snap it. So we were trying to catch them off guard with a quick snap. Because remember, it was 4th down, and it was a punting situation, and we decided not to punt. So I think the officials thought we were trying to, catch the 49ers napping and, subbing in guys in and out, and they thought we had subbed, but we didn't. And so they kind of jerked us, allowed the 49ers to get set, and they were able to stop it. But I still didn't love the fact that we couldn't get 6 inches because it wasn't a long one. It was literally 4th and inches. And I was also disappointed at the fact that we didn't use a guy like Logan Thomas with a bigger frame. If you're gonna roll the dice in that particular situation, at that portion of the field, I just think you need those 6 inches of, a guy at 6'6" versus a guy at 6 feet. Well, why not put Logan Thomas in there? That didn't make a lot of sense to me, but whatever. One of the big questions that Scott's been, asked since Carson Wentz has gotten healthy is if Carson was ever inserted back into the lineup, would the play calling change? Would the philosophical beliefs change? And so, of course, he was asked that again today. And to which he responded, no, we are what we are. And, being that things are different now than when he started the first 6 games, we like to think that it's a better situation for him. And but we're going to continue to be physical up front. We're going to allow the offensive line to get off the ball and attack and do all those things. But he's like, obviously, the game dictates how things go. I mean, if we're down 14-3 in the 3rd quarter, if you're down 21-6, you got to start slinging it around the yard, right? So obviously, you don't want to be in those situations. You don't want to be down. You don't want to have it be where you need to throw it exclusively. But if we have to do that, the numbers will be skewed. But if we continue to do the things that we've done, it shouldn't end up in one of those situations where Carson has to throw it, 42 times like he was earlier in the season. So we'll see what happens. But he sounds like he's pretty adamant that what we've been doing to get us to this point, we're going to continue to do that and hopefully just be more successful in the red zone when it gets time to score. We'll see. They like what Carson has done and how far he's come in terms of his knowledge of the offense. And, I think Scott even admitted that Taylor was banged up. And we knew that. Taylor's not a big guy. There was the Texans game where he had a handoff. And remember the Texans game? He got slammed down and he had an ice pack on his neck. And he was kind of, there was the Falcons game where he gave a handoff on a jet sweep and his arm got taken with the football and he was flexing his arm around. And so he was pretty beat up. There was the Giants game where he hit his hand on a helmet and he was flexing his fingers around. I thought he had done the same thing Carson had done. So yeah, he was pretty banged up. And then he really got walloped pretty good against the 49ers. So, Carson's healthy. Taylor isn't the healthiest right now, but we're going to see what Carson's able to do. I think they're excited about this opportunity with Carson, but, we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. Let's go behind enemy lines. And I learned a lot today. A lot of shit that I did not want to hear. And that's never good. You never want to hear things that don't support the angle that you're looking for, right? A lot of people love to bring up numbers, but they like to bring up numbers that support their case. Things that make sense to the things that the agenda that they're pushing. You never want to hear some shit that doesn't go in your favor. And I heard a lot of that today. So I'll just give you those quickly. We'll get into some Brown stuff and then we'll get out of here. So I heard something crazy today. It doesn't mean anything, but it means something. Teams that have played the 49ers this season are 0-14 the following week. Wait, what? Wait, what? What did you say? Teams that have played the 49ers are 0-15 this season, the following week. Or I think it's 0-13, excuse me. Teams that have played the 49ers and played a game the following week. So there's been 2 weeks this season where the 49ers have played an opponent and that opponent then had a bye week. So they didn't play the following week. But if you had a game directly after you played San Francisco, you lost the next week. Teams that have played San Francisco and then played a game the following week are 0-13. No team has played San Francisco 1 week and then won the following week, which means they're a physical team. They beat you up and you don't recover fast enough the following week to go out and get a win. Physically, they take a toll on you. I'm just giving you what was given to me. That's a crazy stat. It doesn't bode well for us, but we played them on a Saturday. We get an extra day of rest. You see our injury report. Now, some of it is illness related, but we were relatively healthy going into that 49ers game. We literally had 4 guys on the injury report. That was it. It's the healthiest we had been since week 2. Now we have a laundry list yet again. I'm not saying, I'm just telling you, like I was told, okay? I'm not saying, I'm just saying that's not a good omen for us. Teams that have played San Francisco are 0-13 the following week. Ouch. Here's another stat that I didn't want to hear, or this one I kind of found myself. I just stumbled into this. It's not really a big stat like that one. But since Deshaun Watson has come back, he's played in 4 games. He started 4 games. The Browns have won a game, then lost a game. Won a game, then lost a game. This is the week that they're supposed to win a game. You really don't want to hear that. They're 2-2 with Watson. They won the first game against Houston, lost the next game on the road at Cincinnati. They come back home, beat the Ravens. They lose the following week at home to the Saints. Now they're coming to Washington. This is supposed to be the week that they win. Again, I don't want to hear that shit. I'm just telling you that exists. Here's another thing that we need to talk about. Now we're getting into the Browns stuff, right? In the 4 starts with Deshaun Watson, the Browns are 2-2, as I mentioned. They've turned it over in every single one of those games with the exception of one. That was the win over Baltimore on, I want to say it was a Saturday night in week number 15. Okay. We had 3 games on that Saturday. Then, we had the Sunday slate. They were one of the Saturday games. They beat them and it was a ho-hum game, 13-3. They didn't turn it over. In the other 3 games, they've turned it over at least once. They're 1-2 in those ball games. Another interesting stat. Since Deshaun Watson has come back, Nick Chubb has not rushed for 100 yards in a single game. Now, he's come close. The Ravens win. He had 99 yards. So he was right there, knocking on the door. Didn't quite get there, but That's what they need from him. It's one of those types of performances. When they lost to the Bengals, Chubb had 14 carries for 34 yards. He was absolutely taken out of that game and shut down. And the Browns weren't close in that game, really. That's what we're going to have to do if we want to have success. If Nick Chubb is ripping off 7, and like, to me, and this is what frustrates me with our staff, because we'll wait until Nick Chubb rips off a 27-yard run or a 45-yard run, or we'll wait till Nick Chubb rips off a succession of 8, 7, and 14 before we go into our 5-man defensive front. If the Browns aren't in 11 personnel, I'm going to have John Ridgeway on the field with the other guys. That's just how I would operate. I would go into this game saying Deshaun Watson and his weapons are going to have to beat us. I'm going to take that linebacker off the field. I'm going to put an extra defensive lineman on the field. I'm going to go with my 4-1, my 5-1-5 defensive look, and that's going to be that. That's how I would approach it. Like Deshaun Watson, who hasn't proven since he's been back that he can single-handedly carry a team and lead them to victory, I'm going to force him to have to do that. You can't allow the crutch of the run game. Okay? So, they're not running the football effectively. Watson isn't throwing it effectively. Like, his completion percentage is under 60% since he's come back. He has not been super efficient. Okay? There have been games where he's been under or hovering around 50% completion percentage. It has not been pretty. But this is what you expect from a guy that hasn't played in a while. However, he's still Deshaun Watson. He still can use his legs to hurt you. He still can throw the football. They've got some weapons. Don't fall asleep behind the wheel. Amari Cooper is still there lurking. We know what Amari Cooper looks like. We know what he can do and how he can impact the game. So we can't fall asleep behind the wheel. But you have to stop Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb if you want to win this game. In the games in which they've turned it over, they're 1-2 on this during Deshaun Watson's tenure. 1-2. So the likelihood that you're going to beat them, and the only one that they've won was a game against the Texans because the Texans suck. The Browns turned it over twice, and the Texans turned it over 4 times, including 2 pick sixes. Okay? Watson didn't do anything in that game noteworthy. The defense literally won them that game. And the special teams, they had a punt return in that game as well for a touchdown from Donovan Peoples-Jones. So understand that if they turn it over, they're a shell of themselves. They exponentially decrease their chances of winning when they turn the football over. We turn the football over. That's our thing. Like, hopefully with Heineke no longer in the lineup, maybe that subsides a bit. But that's who we've been this season, a turnover type of team. Here's an opportunity to create some turnovers. Right? We created a turnover last week against San Francisco. It helped keep us in the ball game. Here's another team that is capable of turning it over 2-3 times in a ball game. It'd be nice if we could create some turnovers, create some doubt, and really take the ball out of Nick Chubb's hands. If we jump out in front and we do what we did to the Texans, let's go with that premise. I don't see that happening, but let's go with that. We jump out on top of these boys 20-0, 17-0. Chubb's role in the game diminishes. Now they have to rely on Deshaun Watson. They're not built to do that. I feel like a fast start is imperative in this game. Unlike any other game this season, I think, and maybe the Texans game, I felt like that when you're playing teams that you feel like you should beat. Washington's a 2-point favorite in this game, which means Vegas is not confident in Washington, nor should they be. When you're playing teams that you feel like you're better than, that you should beat, the key is to get off to a fast start. The longer you allow a team to linger, to loiter, to hang around, they're going to gain confidence and feel like they can beat you. Now a mistake or two could be the difference in the game. When you score points, when you create distance, a turnover or two may not hurt you as bad. There's a bigger margin for error. When you don't score points, when you let a team hang around, one turnover can be the difference in a game. One fourth down stop can be the difference in the game. A missed field goal, a missed extra point. The margin for error shrinks. We've seen that with this team this season. We saw it with this team last year. When you play the kind of football that we've played the last 2 seasons, where you're winning games 17-15 like we did last year. We won a game 17-16 this year. We won a game 12-7. When you're playing games in that fashion, you don't have a big margin for error. When you score points, when you get up on a team early, you create an environment where you can make a mistake. You can miss a kick here. You can throw an interception there and it not be backbreaking. You let the Browns get off to a fast start. You let them gain confidence. You start to feel the pressure of the moment because this is a big game. There's no way around it. We have not been a good home team this season. This is a big game. The last time we were at home, we had a big game and we screwed around and we lost it. You let that pressure mount and all of a sudden the Browns come in and they take us out. This is one of those games where you need to take their run game out of the mix. And you can do that one of 2 ways, by just stopping their run game. All right. That's the easiest way. Just stop them. Or you can start fast. Step on their throats and never take your foot off of their neck. Jump out to a 17-0 lead midway through the second quarter. You jump out to a 20-0, like we did the Texans. It was 20-0 at halftime. You want to take the run game out of the mix? That's how you do it. You let them hang around. You let Kevin Stefanski run the football, go play action fake, and all of a sudden, David Njoku is getting loose for a 34-yard gain. Mark Cooper's breaking down Danny Johnson in the secondary somewhere, and it's a 47-yard gain. Nick Chubb's getting lathered up. It's cold. We're missing tackles. All of a sudden, he rips off a 33-yard gain. Don't put yourself in a position where a turnover here or a missed opportunity there is the difference in the game. Create some distance. They're 6-9 for a reason. Watson hasn't been good since he's gotten back. Average at best. At best. And that may be putting it modestly. Nick Chubb hasn't been dominant Nick Chubb in over a month. Probably even a little bit longer than that. Probably since the Tampa Bay overtime game. That was before Watson came back. He hasn't had a 100-yard performance since Watson has been back. I don't think that's a coincidence. You're not getting quality play out of the quarterback position. It allows you to tee off on the run. It's sort of like what's going on with the Titans right now. I know Derrick Henry is all you have. You don't have anybody at quarterback. Guess what? I'm loading up to stop Derrick Henry. We need to do the same thing. Don't wait until Nick Chubb has 12 rushes for 67 yards before you decide we're going strictly to the 5-man defensive front. Come out and send a message early. Bro, if you want to throw it, Watson, go ahead. I dare you. I double dog dare you, but you will not ride the shoulders of Nick Chubb in this game. That will not happen. Kareem Hunt will not be the death of us in this game. That has to be the message. I hope they get that message loud and clear. I'm not confident about this game, but I do think we're the better team. I do think we're going to win this game. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. I'll give you my prediction for the game, but I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm not as confident as I was against the Titans. We did not win, or the Giants. We did not win. Okay. This is more like the Bears game where we did win, but I predicted a loss because we had that Daniel Snyder story that appeared like literally hours before the game. But I thought we could beat the Bears. And there have been other games this season where I thought we could win, but yeah, you know, But this isn't Giants, game 2. This isn't Titans game earlier this season where I was adamant we're going to win and we lost. I've got my doubts. What team is going to show up in this game? What Washington team is going to show up? That's going to be the $1 million question. If the team that we know is capable of beating teams like Cleveland shows up, we run it effectively, we get the playmakers involved, we take advantage of opportunities, we take care of the football, but more importantly, we force turnovers. Because when we were at our best, when we won, 3 in a row, right? When we won 6 out of 7, we were forcing turnovers. Every single game, we were forcing and creating opportunities. This is the type of game where you should be able to do that. We'll see if we can do that without giving it away an inordinate amount of times. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys one final time before this game. I'll also be looking to give away the tickets again. For those of you who are interested in being entered into the drawing to win the 2 tickets to this Browns game, go back to the video, the live video we did yesterday, 17.1, okay? 17.1, go to the comment section, use the hashtag #DoodooBrown, okay? I pinned the exact hashtag that you have to use to be entered into the drawing, okay? And you must be a member of the Mob Squad or Patreon, okay? So we'll give away those tickets. We'll go into the game plan, and I'll give you my prediction for this game tomorrow. Again, it'll be an early recording. I'll try to release it a little bit later on in the day, but it'll be an early recording because I'm getting out of the office early. So I won't have all of the information like injury report, all of that stuff. I won't have that at my disposal at the time of that video, but it doesn't change the way I feel about the game. All right. So you guys enjoy Thursday Night Football. Cowboys should destroy the Titans tonight. We'll see what happens. They've been known to let teams hang around. Dak's going to turn it over once or twice and give the Titans an opportunity to hang around for a while. But the Titans, they're a shell of themselves. They're going to lose that division, and I think Dallas is going to help them and do their part to help the Jaguars clinch that division. So anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Until next time, you guys have a good one.
Here comes the Diesel. Here comes the Diesel. Here comes the Diesel. Here comes the Diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30.